All right, we're gonna work on making grid sketches. I'm gonna use Mural as my area to draw. You, of course, can be working on grid paper. I'm just using this as if it was my chalkboard. So I'm assuming, I know my page size is 8 by 10. So I'm gonna start off by making two rectangles, that are 8 by 10 and put them next to each other. This equals a spread. 2 pages equal a spread. So here is my spread to 8 by 10 pages. The first thing I'm going to do is create a margin. Every time I start off a page design, I want a margin, and that is because I don't want my information on my page to fall off the edge of the page. So I always am going to start by creating a margin. We also don't want things to go in the center here in the gutter of the spreads, because that's where the minute have any of your type going into that gutter and be bound into the middle of the book where we can't read it. So the next step I'm going to do is I encourage you to use a different color for your grid, because that way it's not going to get too confusing when we have everything in our sketch. So the first thing is I'm going to design how many columns I want for my layout. The more columns you have, the more flexibility ultimately you'll have. So you don't want to be too few. All right, notice how I have space between each column because I have a gutter. Okay, so there's my 4-column grid. I'm going to just copy this and pull it over here. Okay, so there's my 4-column grid. This is going to be a modular grid, so I'm also going to do flow lines. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to, just for the sake of this, is I'm going to make them solid and pull them across so you can see them a little clearer digitally. Oh, maybe I shouldn't make them solid, but I don't think you'll see. Oh, I can make them transparent. That's what I want to do. There we go. I'll make them transparent. Okay, so here is my modules. I'm just going to center them. Okay, so there's my grid. Now I'm going to look at my text that I received from my recipe and think about what I want to incorporate in my sketch. So I know I have a photo. And so I'm actually going to start with my photo because I know I want to highlight the recipe. I know people choose recipes with their eyes. They want to see a nice, big, beautiful photo. So I'm going to start by putting a big box here lined up with my module so that I can show my photo of my recipe. Next, I'm going to indicate where my headline's going to go. Yes, Amber, I see your hands up.
So just to clarify, you're showing us how we should draw it like on grid paper?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Good question.
So we're doing this hand drawn, right?
You're doing this hand drawn on grid paper.
And you want it like facing pages, so we should have a big grid paper. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No, it can be on an 8.5, 11. You can draw them half size.
But you still want them to be like facing pages, right?
I do want them to be facing pages, right? So if this size, page size is 8 by 10, half size fits on an 8.5, 11
Okay,
of a
thank you.
spread facing pages. Yep, Danny, as you have a question.
So do we want one recipe to take up 2 pages?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. One recipe will take up 2 pages, and one of your spreads will also have to include that sidebar. So you're going to have a headline. You're going to have a subhead. You're going to have intro text introducing us. Now, what I want you to use here for intro text, well, actually, I can do it with the drawing tool. I won't do it this way. I'll do it this way with the drawing tool. So when we're showing intro text, headlines, you can use, something kind of big like this to show a headline, and this can be a subhead. To show body copy, I want to have my body copy for my intro text go across 2 columns, and it's going to be flush left. So I want to show a ragged line on the right to show that it's flush left. And sometimes I'll even add a line there to indicate that it's flush left. So that's my intro text. Now I have utensils, which has a little subhead. So I like to indicate a subhead being bolder. And then that's a list. You have a lot of lists. So we have to think about, how are we showing lists? We then have ingredients, which is another list that has a subhead. And then how do we show ingredients? And ingredients can sometimes, for some of our recipes, be quite long. And it might take us, all the way over multiple columns. Then I know I have a step-by-step ingredients, or a step-by-step instructions. So I'm going to have a headline, and then I might have, I have, step 1, and how long am I going to make, depending on how much copy you have, like how long is this step 1, and then I have step 2, and so on and so forth. And you're going to keep going down and saying, how many steps does my recipe have? Each of you have a different amount. You all have different recipes. So it's not the same amount of text from person to person. It will be different. And then you might decide you want to include those step-by-step pictures. So, if you do, how are you going to do that? Are you going to have them, over here to the side? What are your thoughts? And then if they're like this, how do we identify that? We might have to add little numbers on them so people know what order they're going in. these are hand drawn, so it's not like anything has to be perfect. It's just to kind of get a layout idea so that you can communicate what you're thinking. We still have things like a nutrition that has to be listed. So where am I going to put my nutrition? Where am I going to put allergens? So, and so on and so forth. You're going to look at all the elements you have and determine, where is everything going? So when you're indicating a photo, you want to put a X through it that indicates that it's a photo. And again, you're drawing these. I'm drawing it on mural just because I would normally draw this if we were in the classroom on a chalkboard. But the idea is that you're going to be drawing these on your grid paper. And we're going to work half size. So our design is 8 inches by 10 inches. So what is half size for our drawings?
4x5.
Right. So half size is a 4 by 5. So if you look at an 8.5 by 11 page, right? If this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, you can fit 2 spreads, which is what each design will have, right? Because 4 plus 4 is 8, and this is 5, and this is 5, right? So this is where your sketches can go for your 2 spreads. So this is one set of, and based on the same grid. So this is a 4-column grid. So then you'd have one set, both spreads, 4-column grid. And then you would do another set with a different grid and a third set with another grid. You're going to do 3 sets of sketches total. Is everyone understanding what I'm saying?
So are you saying that you want us to draw like 2 of the facing pages on one page? So that would be 2 different layouts of a magazine or of a
Of a
recipe?
cookbook.
Yes.
Of a cookbook. Yes, you're going to do both spreads on one 8.5/11 sheet, just like I've
So-
drawn here. Exactly like I've drawn here.
So would the first one be your first recipe and the second one be the second recipe?
That's right. And don't forget, your sidebar has to be included on one of the recipes. On one of the spreads, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Good question. So there's 2 recipes and 1 sidebar for each set. And I'll put that, well, actually, let's do it this way. So each grid paper page includes 2 half size spreads, 1 recipe per spread, and 1 sidebar on one spread. Okay, does that make sense? Grid sketches,
Yeah,
we're
that
going to be
makes-
doing 3 sets. I'm sorry, what did we get?
I was just saying that makes sense.
It does make sense. Okay, good. I just want to make sure I was making sense. Okay, good. All right. So that's what we're doing. So the 2 things we're doing for homework are we're doing our type studies with our type. We're doing 10 type studies using different typefaces, different sizes, different leading, different widths. You're trying, experimenting, trying lots of things. They're all based on your 2-word compass that you've developed. And then once we've done that, we're going to start sketching out grid sketches. And we're going to do 3 sets, half size on grid paper with our pencil and a marker, and draw them out just like I've done here. Boxes for pictures, lines for type. You can add numbers in, you can say headline, but really you're not worrying about drawing type, okay? There's no drawing type. We're just drawing lines and boxes to organize our content and really think through all the pieces that have to fit on this spread. There's a lot to fit. And so you really got to be looking at your actual content and acknowledging it on your sketch, okay? Any other questions before we? All right.